When my in-laws invited me to join their family business, I put my career on hold. Worked 70 hours a week. One day I was locked out of the office. My wife said they want someone whose blood. I asked what that meant. She looked at me and said, they've already replaced you. I drove to the warehouse, walked inside, and what I saw. My name is Ray. I'm 42. I live just outside Dayton, Ohio. This story isn't easy to tell. I still wake up some nights with my hands clenched, heart pounding, teeth grinding. This is not about money, not really. It's about betrayal. Pure, cold betrayal. From people I trusted. From people I thought were family. I used to work in construction management. Long days, long contracts, but I liked the work. I built things that lasted. I was good at it. I had stability, benefits, and a clear path forward. Then I married Callie. Callie was smart, fun, had a kind smile that made you forget the world. She worked part-time at a real estate office and did some interior decorating on the side. Her family owned a business that sold and distributed industrial parts, nuts, bolts, tools, fittings, that kind of stuff. I didn't think much of it at first. It seemed like a pretty standard family-run thing. Her dad, Ron, was the founder. Her mom, Debbie, was the office personality. Always around, always involved, but rarely doing much. Her brother Drew was next in line, supposedly. He had a job title but spent most of his time drinking or golfing. Her older sister, Meg, worked from home and did the books. They were a tight-knit bunch. Not warm. Not mean either. Just distant. Like there was a fence around them and I was allowed to lean on it but not climb over. But I wanted to belong. I thought if I proved myself, they'd let me in. About 6 months after we got married, Ron pulled me aside during a Sunday dinner. You ever think about leaving the construction stuff behind? He asked. Why? I said, chewing ribs off the bone. Because I could use someone sharp. Someone I can trust. Business is growing. We need a serious operations guy. You'd be family, not just staff. Callie's hand slid into mine. I could feel the excitement in her fingers. She was already imagining the new life. You should do it, she whispered later that night. It'll bring us closer to my family. They trust you. I quit my job 2 weeks later. Took a huge pay cut. Lost my seniority. Lost my pension track. But I didn't care. I was all in. The first year was hard. Really hard. I came in early every day. Usually 5:30 a.m., sometimes earlier. I learned the business from the ground up, how things were shipped, packed, labeled, sorted. I created a new inventory tracking system, made the loading dock more efficient, got our delivery schedules tightened. I drove forklifts, unloaded trucks in the snow, stayed until 9 p.m. more nights than I can count. Meanwhile, Drew showed up whenever he felt like it. Half the time hungover. Took long lunches, made crude jokes, left early. Ron called him a good man, just a little restless. Meg kept things quiet. She handled the numbers from her home office. I never saw the books. Ron told me it wasn't my lane. I didn't complain. I kept my head down. I told myself this was how you build trust. Every Thanksgiving, every 4th of July, every Christmas, I spent with her family. And I worked through most of them. If we had big shipments coming in, I showed up. Nobody thanked me. But I kept showing up. 2 years in, Ron called me into his office. You've done good, he said. Real good. I'm thinking about making you partner. I stared at him. For real. He nodded. Keep doing what you're doing. That was the last time we talked about it. After that, something started to change. Ron stopped looking me in the eye. Drew started acting smug. Meg got even more distant. Callie got weird. Too quiet, short-tempered, always on her phone. Then one morning, I drove in early and my keycard didn't work. I tried again. Nothing. I waited for 20 minutes before one of the warehouse guys showed up and let me in. System glitch? I asked. He looked uncomfortable. Don't know, man. Nobody tells me anything. Inside, it was like I was invisible. People didn't make eye contact. They moved around me like I wasn't there. I went to my office and saw my nameplate gone. Gone. I called Callie. No answer. Called again. No answer. She texted me an hour later. We need to talk tonight. Please just come home. That night, she was waiting at the kitchen table. Pale. Shaky. I asked her what was going on. She said, they want someone whose blood. I said, what the hell does that mean? She looked at me with this hollow face. like she was already mourning something. "They've already replaced you," she said. I stood there in silence. "With who?" I asked. She hesitated, then said a name I hadn't heard in years. "Chase." I blinked. "Chase who?" She looked down. "Chase Miller, her ex, college boyfriend. Used to brag about being an entrepreneur. Always smelled like cologne and weed. Last I heard, he was in Chicago pitching some kind of logistics startup. Now, somehow, he was working with my in-laws. In what world does that make sense?" I asked, my voice shaking. "They replaced me with your ex?" She didn't answer. I grabbed my keys and left. It was almost 10 p.m. when I got to the warehouse. I wasn't expecting anyone to be there, but the side door was propped open. Inside, the lights were on. Laughter echoed from the back offices. I walked in. I didn't knock. I just walked straight to my old office. And there he was, Chase, sitting at my desk, laughing with Drew. Meg was there too, nodding along like a robot. Even Ron was leaning against the wall, arms crossed, like some proud mob boss. When they saw me, they didn't even flinch. "Ray," Ron said, "you shouldn't be here." "What the hell is this?" I said. Chase stood up, grinning like a used car salesman. "Hey man, no hard feelings, all right?" I looked around. My chair, my laptop, my files, my job, gone. "Why?" I asked, trying to keep my voice from cracking. Ron shrugged. "Business decision. You brought in her ex. You brought in her ex and kicked me out like trash." Ron didn't respond. Drew chuckled. "Chase brings in money. He's already got 2 contracts lined up. That's more than you ever brought." I looked at Meg. She wouldn't meet my eyes. I looked at Ron again. "I gave you everything," I said. "You said I was family." He looked at me flatly. "You're not blood." That word again. Not blood. I left without saying another word. But I wasn't done. Not by a long shot. I didn't sleep that night. I sat in the truck in our driveway with the engine off, staring at the garage door, trying to keep myself from breaking it down. Callie never texted. Never came out. She knew what she did. The next morning, I went back inside the house like a ghost. She was in the kitchen, dressed like nothing happened, sipping her coffee, scrolling on her phone. I said, "You replaced me with Chase." She didn't even look up. "They replaced you," she said. "I had nothing to do with it." "You didn't stop it," I said. "I couldn't," she said, finally looking at me. "You don't understand how my dad thinks." "No," I said, stepping closer. "You don't understand how betrayal works." She just shook her head. "This was coming. You just didn't see it." I packed a bag. Told her I needed space. She didn't fight me on it. I stayed in a motel off I-75 for a week, trying to figure out what the hell to do. The longer I sat there, the angrier I got. Not just because they cut me out, but because I made them better. Everything I did at that company made them money. And now they were giving it all to her ex-boyfriend, like I was just a placeholder until he could slide in. Then I started hearing things. One of the warehouse guys I trained, Ricky, texted me, "You didn't hear this from me? But they've been planning this for months. Chase's name's already on the new business cards. He's calling himself VP." Another guy, Sal, said they were already undoing some of the systems I'd put in. Said Chase didn't like overcomplicated inventory control. Drew and Chase were now throwing weekly meetings I was never part of, talking about rebranding. I knew what was happening. They were gutting everything I built. Then something weird happened. I got a call from a guy named Kevin Rollins, owner of an HVAC supply chain in Cincinnati. We'd met once at a vendor expo. He said he heard I was no longer affiliated with RPM Supply, that was my in-laws' company. I told him, yeah, not by choice. Then he said something that changed everything. "Well, that's a damn shame. You're the reason we kept giving RPM business. You always followed through." He paused, then said, "You looking for work?" That's when it hit me. I didn't need to burn their business down. I could bleed it dry. I started reaching out to every contact I had made in the last 5 years. Vendors, trucking partners, small clients. People who liked me, people who trusted me. And they all had one thing in common. They hated Drew, didn't trust Ron, and didn't even know who the hell Chase was. Some of them didn't even realize I was gone yet. I didn't go full revenge mode right away. I started slow. Met with Kevin for lunch, talked contracts. A week later, he brought me in as a logistics consultant. Just part-time. Then another client, a coating supplier in Toledo, brought me on to streamline their warehouse. It was like flipping a switch. I knew the RPM clients. I knew their habits, their complaints, their weaknesses. I didn't poach. I didn't even reach out first. I just made myself available. And they came to me. One night, I went to the gas station and ran into Sal from the warehouse. He looked around before speaking. "They're flailing," he said. "Drew and Chase are at each other's throats. Ron's yelling more. Meg looks like she's about to cry every day. And Callie, well, she stopped showing up." I raised an eyebrow. "What do you mean? She hasn't been to the office in over a week. Word is she and Chase aren't getting along either." My jaw tightened. She let that snake into our lives, into her father's business, and now he was eating them from the inside. Good. Let him. Then came the twist I didn't expect. Kevin offered me a position full-time. Not as some operations guy. As his business partner. He had a new idea, expand his supply business north into Dayton. Open a new branch. Run it right. "You've already got the trust," he said. "They trust you. Let's build something that'll bury your in-laws." Felt like a second chance. Only this time I'd do it right. I said yes. We signed the paperwork 2 weeks later. Dayton Logistics Solutions was born. The same week we opened, I saw an email come through from a former RPM client. They said, "Heard you were back. We're moving our account to you. We'd rather work with someone who actually gives a damn." That was the first. Then another. And another. And that's when I decided it wasn't enough just to win. I wanted them to know I won. 2 months after we opened Dayton Logistics Solutions, I started getting emails meant for my old RPM address. Not spam. Actual vendor invoices. Customer inquiries. Requests for restock. Turns out someone over there forgot to fully shut down my old email account, or maybe Chase just didn't know how to redirect messages properly. So, for weeks, I had a front row seat to their slow collapse. Clients were complaining about late shipments. Items were going missing in deliveries. One client said they received a crate of rusted washers. Another got billed twice for the same order. And all of them were pissed. I didn't respond, obviously. But I saved everything. I printed every email, every document, every missed order. I started a folder, RPM Implosion. Then I got an email that stopped me cold. From Callie. Subject: "Do you have time to talk?" I didn't respond. 2 hours later, she texted, "Can we meet? Please. I know you hate me, but I need to explain." I ignored it. The next day, I was walking into the new warehouse when I saw her car in the lot. She was standing next to it, arms folded, looking like she hadn't slept. 10 minutes, she said. I sighed and walked over. I didn't say anything. She said, "Chase is gone." I looked at her. Gone. Packed up. Took a client list. Moved back to Chicago. I blinked. "He stole your client list?" She nodded, biting her lip. "He told my dad he was just backing up files. But he took everything. Even our vendor contacts." I almost laughed. I didn't, but I wanted to. She said, "I didn't know he'd do that. I thought he was going to help the business." I said nothing. She added, "My dad blames me. Drew won't talk to me. The whole company's coming apart." I looked her in the eye. "You helped them push me out." Her eyes started to well up. "I didn't stop them. That's true. But I didn't know they were planning it for months. Chase came to my dad. I didn't go looking for him. She stopped. They kept me in the dark too. I didn't care. I said, you chose them. I chose you. Remember that." She opened her mouth to speak, then stopped. "Please don't ruin them," she whispered. "They're already falling apart." I looked at her and said, "I'm not ruining them. They're doing that all by themselves." Then I walked away. Later that week, Sal called me again. "Dude, it's bad over here," he said. 3 clients dropped. Drew is getting drunk in the office. Ron tried to fire Meg and then hired her back 2 hours later. And Callie, well, she's just not there. Like, mentally. I didn't respond. I was focused on building. Our client base had grown by 40%. Kevin brought in 2 more full-timers. I brought in Ricky from RPM. He was hesitant at first but said, "If you're building it, I want in." That was the first nail. Then I got a call from a lawyer. She represented one of RPM's biggest clients, Atlas Manufacturing. She said, RPM just defaulted on a supply contract. They didn't deliver what they promised. We're suing. She asked if we were available to pick up the contract. I said yes, without hesitation. That was the second nail. Then came the biggest twist of all. Meg called me. She asked to meet in person. Neutral place. Diner off Highway 35. I went. Out of curiosity. She looked exhausted. Thinner than I remembered. Pale. I know I've never been close with you, she started. But I want to make something right. I stared at her. You were part of it. She nodded. I know. I was scared of Ron. He controls everything. Always has. But Chase, he destroyed us. You were the only one who knew how to run the place. I said nothing. She slid a manila envelope across the table. These are the real books. The ones Ron doesn't show people. He's been cooking numbers for years. Tax stuff. Under the table invoices. I kept records just in case. I opened the envelope and stared. It was all there. Fraud. Embezzlement. Fake vendors. Shell companies. You're giving this to me, why? I asked. She whispered, because you're the only one who can stop him. I took the envelope. And for the first time I felt something new. Power. Not just revenge. Control. And I wasn't going to waste it. I held that envelope in my hands for 3 days before doing anything. Every night I laid in bed staring at the ceiling, asking myself the same question, do I really want to destroy them? The answer was always the same, they destroyed me first. But I didn't want revenge that just made noise. I didn't want to scream or break windows or spray paint the warehouse. I wanted something cold, permanent, legal. I wanted them to feel what it was like to be powerless. To watch everything they built get taken piece by piece. Just like they did to me. I called a lawyer. Not just any lawyer. A guy who specialized in corporate audits, fraud, and business litigation. His name was Clayton Morse, and he was a hammer in human form. I brought him everything, the financials from Meg, the emails I'd accidentally kept receiving, my employment records, even old contracts I helped draft but never got credited for. He reviewed it all and leaned back in his chair. They're screwed, he said. What can we do? Well, he smiled, depends how surgical you want to be. Step 1 was an anonymous report to the IRS. Clayton made it look clean. A concerned former employee turned over evidence of tax evasion, unreported income, and forged documents. The paper trail Meg gave me was airtight. Step 2 was informing RPM's top suppliers quietly, professionally, that their credit was about to be reevaluated due to a pending investigation. Once word spread, some of them froze accounts. Others started demanding cash on delivery. That shook the foundation. Step 3 was me. I started contacting RPM's former clients, the ones I helped land, the ones I kept happy. I offered better deals, faster delivery, transparent billing. By month 4, we had pulled 8 of their long-term contracts. Then came the day the feds showed up. I wasn't there, obviously, but Sal sent me pictures. Black SUVs. 3 IRS agents in windbreakers. Walked right into RPM's office and started pulling files. Ron tried to block them. That's when they showed the warrant. The place went dead silent. Drew stormed out midday and never came back. Meg? She had already left. Quietly. She told me she was moving to North Carolina to start over with her kid. She handed in her resignation the week before. Callie? She called me 2 days after the IRS raid. I picked up. She sounded hollow. It's over, she said. I didn't say anything. They're seizing the warehouse, she said. Everything. The accounts. Even the trucks. My dad, he's devastated. I said he did it to himself. I know, she said. Then paused. I'm leaving Ohio. Where are you going? I don't know. Doesn't matter. I just needed to say I'm sorry. For all of it. I said I needed to hear that. And then I hung up. A month later, RPM Supply officially filed for Chapter 11 bankruptcy. Their assets were frozen. Ron was hit with IRS penalties and fraud charges. Drew moved in with a friend in Springfield. Debbie was selling her jewelry to pay for lawyers. Chase? Turns out the client list he stole wasn't enough to save him. One of the vendors he scammed pressed charges in Chicago. Last I heard, he was facing a civil suit and possible jail time for fraud. The business collapsed like wet cardboard. It was gone. Everything they tried to keep in the family was now public record, stained, and worthless. And me? I stood in the middle of my new warehouse, surrounded by people who wanted to work with me. People who respected me. My new business was doing better than ever. Kevin made me full partner. We expanded again, this time into Columbus. One afternoon, I walked to the back loading dock where Ricky was loading a pallet. He looked at me and said, "Feels good, huh?" I nodded. "Yeah, real good." But there was one last thing I did. I bought the RPM warehouse at public auction. Cash. Didn't need it. Didn't even want it. But it was the principle. I didn't demolish it. No. I turned it into a second location for Dayton Logistics Solutions. I made sure the big sign out front said, "New management. Real leadership." Every time I walked into that building I smiled. Because they wanted someone with blood. Well, I gave them mine. And now? They bled out.